Hey guys, Whitney here. Welcome to the Passive Investing Made Simple Masterclass. I'm your host, Whitney Elkins-Hutten, Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com. And I'm so excited that you've joined me today. Today, we have got an interesting topic for you. Doesn't matter whether you are new to passive investing or you don't even have to be close to retiring. Actually, today's topic is perfect for the investor that is 5 to 10 years away from retiring. But if you're closer than that, you're going to want to stay tuned for today's topic. Now, we do this masterclass live every Tuesday to help you learn the ins and outs of passive investing so you can go into your first or next real estate investment with confidence. And so if you haven't done so already, check out passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. There, I've got some free goodies for you, as well as you and I can hop on a one-on-one call to discuss your passive real estate investing goals and how we can help you hit those and achieve those goals here at passiveinvesting.com. So be sure to check out passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. All right, so let's dive into today's topic. Today's topic, we're going to talk about how to maximize your RMD in 3 smart ways to invest that RMD in today's market. Now, for those of you who are like, what is an RMD? What does this acronym even stand for? We're going to cover that today. But if you're in retirement, you probably already know what an RMD is. But if you're close to retirement, say 5 to 10 years away, you need to know this. So stay tuned today. But before we dive into today's topic, if this is the first time you and I are meeting before, again, my name is Whitney Elkins-Hutten, and this is the whole reason why I invest in real estate and specifically passive real estate. And so I can be with my crazy crew, do tons of traveling, spend a lot of quality family time together, and really just experience the world. But it wasn't always like that. I started off passive investing, or actually just started off investing in real estate completely by accident back in 2002. I did a lot of live-in flipping and house hacking, scaled a single-family rental portfolio, bought the multifamily building, and it was after that is when I discovered passive investing. And fast forward, after really diving into passive investing and doing still some active investments, I was able to personally scale a quite sizable personal, real estate portfolio of over 6,500 multifamily units in partnership, 2,200 self-storage units in partnership, and 15 express car washes. But it's not the numbers, it's the result those numbers give you that you are probably most interested in. And that is being able to have 100% choice on how you spend your time, having that freedom, right? Financial freedom is something to strive for, but it's not the end all be all goal in life. It's what financial freedom will help you unlock: freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom to create an impact in the world. And we can help you do that here at passiveinvesting.com, whether it's through our debt investments, through our rehab wallet platform, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, or if it's on the equity side of investing. We can help you achieve some strong returns in today's market. Now, since we are talking about RMDs, required minimum distributions, this is a tax topic. So I want you to take this information as education. It's not financial advice, tax advice, legal advice, nothing like that. So make sure you take this information back to your team and understand how it applies to your situation. All right, now we've already just quickly defined required minimum distribution, but let's dive a little bit deeper to understand what a required minimum distribution is. And that it is the minimum amount of money that the IRS requires you to withdraw from your retirement accounts. Okay, more specifically your traditional retirement accounts, but we'll cover what has an RMD, what doesn't here in a minute. But you have to do this every year in order to comply with tax laws, okay? You, in your retirement accounts, are responsible for all the deferred tax liability. If you do not take your required minimum distribution, there are steep penalties. And currently, those penalties are up to 25%. Okay, so this is not something, if you're like in retirement and you have you've got some withdrawals coming out of a traditional IRA and you're scratching your head and you're like, I don't understand what an RMD actually is. Make sure you get with your tax professional to help guide you through this. Okay, now why do we even have RMDs? Okay, why do we have this kind of nasty little bug in the tax system? Well, a lot of people would just, continue to shove money into their retirement accounts, but the rule is actually in place to keep individuals from avoiding the deferred tax liability they own on their retirement accounts, right? So it can be for a variety of reasons, right? Most of us, in retirement are going to be withdrawing, okay, those funds from our retirement account. Okay, there are some little kind of tips, tricks, and hacks to keep that tax liability to a minimum, or even reduce it and eliminate it. But it's there for to get this money unlocked from the retirement accounts, get it back into the system. Okay, now how do you figure out your RMD? Like, how would you even go about understanding how much do I have to withdraw from my retirement account every single year? Well, the best resource for you is going to be able to speak to your tax professional or your accountant. Okay. Now, the kind of backup here is to talk to your retirement account custodian. All right. Now, both of those people are probably going to kind of maybe go, point to each other to better help you better understand, because, maybe you have multiple retirement account custodians. Okay. Maybe you have a solo 401k account. You have your account at your W-2 job. Maybe you have another just traditional IRA account, say like at a traditional brokerage firm. Okay, so that's why that account custodian is probably going to point back to your accountant, because your accountant's going to have greater visibility on all the accounts that you have, right? Because that requirement minimum distribution is calculated across all of your accounts that qualify for an RMD. Now, you too can also figure this out, okay? You can use the IRS worksheets. They post worksheets every year to help you understand what your required minimum distribution is. I've used them. I used them before putting together this presentation. They are not that, hard to navigate. Now, another tool would be to find an online calculator as well. But I think the three best ways are going to be talking to your accountant, to your retirement account custodian, and utilizing that IRS worksheet, because making sure that information is always up to date. Now, what is an RMD requirement? Okay, there's really two measures that we have to look here, or two metrics we have to look at here to understand, are you required to participate in RMD? The first one is age. The required beginning withdrawal rate depends on the type of account that you have. Okay, so IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, and other retirement account plans generally have an RMD that starts at age 73. Okay, now Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks actually don't have an RMD right now. Okay, now tax laws can change, but right now they don't. And inherited IRAs actually operate by an entirely different set of rules. So you're going to want to make sure to understand what type of retirement account you actually have and which rule box do you need to play in. Okay, so the age is number one. Number two is the amount. Okay, so the required minimum distribution is going to vary year to year. And how it is calculated is the required amount depends on the fair market value, or FMV, of the account at the end of each year. Okay, now remember, this is required minimum distribution. It doesn't mean that you can't, if you can actually start taking withdrawals out of your account, you could take more for sure. You need to work with your accountant to understand, the tax impact, the tax liability that you're going to have by requiring more. Okay, it's just the minimum. The RMD is just the minimum. All right. And there might be years that you have to take more money out than above and beyond the required minimum distribution. And then that means for the next year, your RMD will change. So you have to calculate this at the end of every single year. All right. Now, that was a little bit of primer about what RMDs are, why should we care about them, and how do we start picking them apart? Do they apply to us? And if they do, how do I figure out the impact of the RMD here? Now let's talk about what do we do with our required minimum distribution once it comes out of our account? Like, what do we do with this here? Well, naturally, once you withdraw, you want to get it invested based on your investing goals. All right. So you can take that RMD and you can essentially do whatever you want with it, right? It is now out of the retirement account. It's not subject to UBIT taxes anymore. Okay. Now you would be able to use, take that money and invest it in a cash flow deal, say like a debt deal or a real estate note fund. You could go into a deferred cash deal, like a promissory note or a preferred equity deal. Okay. Both of those are going to give you cash flow. Your preferred equity might give you a little bit of tax benefits there. Now you can also freely go into a private equity deal and benefit there from capital preservation, cash flow, equity growth, and tax benefits. So there's essentially the doors are open to you on how you invest these funds once you get them out of your retirement account. Okay, so here's a quick example. We've got Susan, age 68. She's decided to start withdrawing $50,000 a year. Okay, she doesn't need the money, but she decided, I'm going to go ahead and start with taking my RMD now, getting this cash into my control, spreading out my tax liability. Okay, and she's going to offset that tax liability. She's going to take that $50,000, annually, put it in a first lien position debt fund, like our PIC real estate debt fund, and it's going to kick off 8% annually over the next 5 years. Now she's created a stream of income for herself. She's spread out her tax liability over 5 years. She's reduced her future RMD amount in her accounts for when she actually has to start taking that money and probably using it and living off of it. Okay. Here's another, and these are just little stories of how it could apply to you. Okay. We've got Mark, who's 68, and instead of going into a cash flow deal, goes into a deferred cash flow deal, meaning he's like taking a look at a preferred equity deal. Or excuse me, a promissory note here. Unlike Susan, he's not withdrawing $50,000 a year, but maybe $40,000 a year, but he's investing in promissory notes that yield 10% annually over the next 5 years. Okay. Now he's not getting monthly cash flow. Okay. Instead, he's getting lump sum payouts. Maybe that matches his goals and aligns with his goals better. But again, what he's done here is taken the time and started reducing his tax liability, spreading that out over several years and reducing his future RMD requirements. All right. Now I wanted to kind of clue you in. Again, this is not tax advice, guys, but here is probably, if you can plan, if you can be that 5, 7, 10 years ahead of when you need to retire, this is like my fave. Pro tip: reduce your required minimum distribution by doing an early Roth conversions. Okay. Then get that money over to a Roth, and then invest it into deals. Now, I personally love investing in debt funds because I'll show you why here in a second, why this can be so powerful. But really, there are so many different ways you can invest, but this is one of my fave. Okay, so here's an example. We got John, again, 68. He knows at age 73, in 5 years, he's going to have a large RMD on that $1.2 million portfolio. Okay, so he wants to reduce this RMD. So he starts converting over as much as he possibly can afford to, $150,000 annually over the next 5 years. Okay, now he's working with his accountant to make sure all these calculations work. But he's doing a couple different things here. One, he's reducing his traditional IRA balance that's subject to the RMD. He's paying the tax burden, right? We're paying taxes here, all right? But now in that Roth account, he can now get that invested into a note fund that's kicking off 9% preferred return annually. Okay. In 5 years, he's got $750,000 invested in that Roth account. It's kicking out over $67,000 a year in annual income. and it's tax-free. It got to grow tax-free, and now it's coming out tax-free. Okay. His Roth withdrawals now no longer trigger provisional income. All right. That's another like little ticking tax bomb in some people's retirement accounts as well. And he significantly reduced his future RMDs from his traditional IRA account, thereby reducing his tax burden. And oh, guess what? He's moved the money from an account that requires you to take a minimum distribution into an account that does not require you to take a required minimum distribution. All right, guys, this has just been a presentation to help you understand what a required minimum distribution is. Why should we care? Okay. Why do we need to wrap our head around this now as early as possible? Not whenever we're like approaching retirement, but how can we get this in, ahead of this game in say 5, 7, 10 years before retirement? What can we do with those monies once they are taken out of the accounts? All right. How can we get those invested? Now, remember, your strategy has to be based on your particular goals, your risk tolerance, and your timeline horizon. And in order to make all these calculations work for you, you've got to work with a professional team to help you understand those cash flow needs that you need in retirement, but also throughout retirement. Okay. Guys, if you're here live, don't go anywhere. We're about to start our Ask Me Anything part of the show. Awesome. We've got a couple of questions coming in. I'm happy. Oh, I got to get out of the screen. All right. Question came in. Do RMDs apply to self-directed accounts in which I hold real estate limited partnerships? Potentially. I guess the question would be, is it a traditional self-directed account? Is it a traditional IRA self-directed account? Is it a traditional solo 401k account? Potentially it would apply to. Yes. So the required minimum distribution. So the IRS, they want you to prepare for retirement, but they also don't want you to use it as a way to pass along wealth, right? It's for you to retire on those accounts. Now, are there ways to build generational wealth in retirement accounts? Absolutely. If you guys saw what we were able to do with that Roth account, there's no RMD. Okay, now our buddy John is sitting there. Let me back up to the slide. And share it again. Our buddy John is sitting there producing $67,000 annually. Okay, maybe he's got another pension coming in. Maybe he's got Social Security. John's kicking off $100,000 annually of income, and all that 1.2, or a large portion of that, the 1.2 million, is sitting in a Roth account. When John passes away, that Roth now can go to, his heirs. So it can be a very powerful wealth generation tool. But the traditional IRA account, remember, you are kicking the can down the road, so to speak. You're deferring your tax liability to a future date. And the IRS is just like, that was meant for you to pay off the rest of your mortgage, put food on the table, have a roof over your head. We want you taking that money out. Okay. So besides that, if everybody across the United States had all this money locked up in retirement accounts, the IRS wants it out. They want the income from that money because they haven't been getting it this whole entire time. So it's kind of a little bit of a, if you kind of read into it, it's kind of an ingenious tactic. They get us to save in these retirement accounts, build up, $1 million, $2 million, net worth or more in these retirement accounts. And they say, oh, by the way, in retirement, you got to start taking this money out. Okay. Remember, it went in tax deferred, grew tax deferred. And now you have to take it out and pay taxes on the whole thing. Okay. Now there are ways to eliminate that tax, right? You do have your standard deduction, right? But most of us want to retire on more than $25,000 individually, or, or excuse me, $25,000 jointly. At least I do. All right, let me move this over. I have read that one of the things that the ultra wealthy do is to postpone paying taxes as long as possible. Converting traditional IRA money to Roth IRA would amount to going against this philosophy. Do you agree? There are, so I am not an accountant. Okay. So I'm going to put a little caveat there. I think this is why personal finance is so individualistic. If you were on our webinar with Tom Wheelwright back in May, you would have heard Tom say he's going to do so many other things before putting money into a retirement account. He's going to coach all of his wealthy people to do 4 different things before they actually put a dime in any sort of retirement account. Okay, so what do is that they're going to try to lower the tax liability through deductions. Then they're going to, utilize entities. They're going to utilize other people's tax brackets. Okay, then they're going to utilize credits that they can get. Okay, and then if you still have so much income coming in and you need to, lower your tax bracket, now you're putting money into traditional IRA accounts. Okay. Now, what I think is a little bit of a misnomer. Most really rich people I know, they're not putting money in traditional IRA accounts. They're putting money into Roth accounts because they've already paid the tax bill. It grows tax-free, comes out tax-free, and doesn't require trigger a required minimum distribution in retirement. It does not trigger provisional income right now in retirement. And so if they needed to withdraw income, they've already paid the tax bill and they get to grow everything tax-free. Also, it can be a great inheritance tool to pass down. Like for me, I'm building my Roth account. I have no intentions of ever using it. It's there if I did. It's kind of a nice emergency account, but it's going to be a nice hefty account when I pass on and it can go on to my child. Here's the thing. Everything is personal. So you're going to sit down with your accountant to understand what you should be doing in your tax plan. With the Roth account, it is a use it or you lose it, right? Like you get 6,500 or 7,000 to put in your Roth account. If you don't use it for that year, you lose it. It doesn't continue to roll over year. Now, if you have a solo 401k account, you might be able to put $50,000 into your Roth solo 401k annually. So again, you're going to want to work with a tax strategist on this. So converting the other half of this question, converting from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, a lot of people do that as close to the finish line as possible. And when I say finish line, retirement, because their income tends to be lower, right? They're taking all that time to shove as much money as they can into the traditional side of things, but now they got to pay the tax bill to get it over to the Roth because the Roth conversion does trigger taxes. Awesome. What other questions does this bring up for you? I'm curious, what did you guys love about the presentation and what would you love to see? All right, while you guys are taking a moment to type in your questions there, just wanted to give a little shout out and let you know that our next week's presentation, we're going to be talking about the top 10 things that a passive investor must know before they invest in a deal. But if you guys don't have any other questions, thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, we got more questions coming in. Oh yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. But for those of you who want to sign off, thank you so much for spending your time with me here today. If you got more questions, drop them in the chat box. I would love to try to give you my insight as best I can. In doing Roth conversion, should one consider IRMA? IRMA. I don't know. Let's take a look what IRMA is. I would, I would work with your, yeah, I would work with your accountant to understand like how IRMAA, there's actually two A's to that, not just one, might impact your Roth conversion decision because that's based on, it looks like Medicare. So I'm not versed in that. So I would talk to your accountant and see if they can best guide you on that. I don't want to give you like, I don't have any opinion on that. Um, Somebody said maybe have a tax strategist as a guest on a podcast in the future. Yep. About a year ago, we had Brandon Hall on. We've had Amanda Hahn on before. We had Tom Wheelwright back in March. We try to space out like, when we bring our accountants on, but those are three that I would really put you in touch with. But I always try to when I bring on a guest, like legal guest or accountant, I try to bring them on to address a specific question like RMDs, and nobody wanted to touch it because it is so specific to each person's personal finance situation. But I think even just defining that, like, making sure that people understand and that there are several different ways you could take your investing afterwards, I think that was simple enough to do. Somebody said, I appreciate you highlighting something we don't tend to think about. Yeah, most people are trying to like scale their wealth and they don't think about what buckets the monies are in. Now, for me, I always love, investing all my cash into equity deals. I do a lot of my debt investing through retirement accounts, just to stay tax optimized. But that doesn't mean it will match actually your investing goals, because if I need cash flow today, I don't want to put the cash flow deals in my retirement account. Okay. And if I can stave off equity growth for a longer period of time, maybe flip-flopping those or having some sort of mix, both in cash holdings and in my retirement accounts, makes sense. Uh, yeah, somebody chimed in that IRMA account is actually one to speak with your financial tax advisor that can be very specific to your individual situation. Absolutely. All right, guys. If you have any more questions, pop them over in the chat box. We've got plenty of time. Otherwise, I'll hang out here for another minute. Otherwise, thank you guys for taking your time out of your day to spend it here with me. We will see you next week. Next week, we also have our boot camp as well, so I'm super excited. All right, guys, take care.